So I want to talk a little bit about the economics of sound irrigation management and really following up with Dr. Rowland a little bit on some of the scheduling methods is really where my focus will be. And so starting first with some of those economic considerations, we certainly talk about benefits of irrigation. Benefits of irrigation in terms of improving the crop production. Obviously, if we can improve yield, that can benefit farmers, benefit their profits. If we can provide reduced yield variability and provide more consistency with respect to yield, that is important as well as a risk management tool, where we know exactly what we can expect if we have good irrigation management practices. Some of the costs, of course, with respect to irrigation do involve, the expensive fixed costs and the complexity in some of the tools to be able to actually manage, the irrigation methods. So if we talk about the requirements of peanuts, they do require about 23 inches of water in the year, and you can see, you can see during that 10-week period to about the 17-week period where there is the greatest requirement in terms of water usage for the peanut, about 78% of the water. So, there is a little bit more of a consistent water need that we know rainfall is not going to provide, and that's one of the benefits of looking at irrigation is providing that consistency. About a little more than half of the peanuts in Georgia in 2016 were irrigated, and so there's certainly a lot more opportunity as well for irrigation, but it is an important feature within Georgia. The bottom chart here is different irrigation scheduling methods that farmers have used based on a survey from the USDA NASS from 2013. And so so a lot of farmers use just kind of visible stress methods or the feel of the soil. Georgia's not very much out of line with other states in the area, or other growers of peanuts. But when we talk about specifically today, the idea of, scheduling services, calendar scheduling, variety of scheduling methods that are a little bit less used, and something that does need to be considered. So when we talk about irrigation scheduling can be a management tool, right? The idea is that we want to not just increase profitability and the quality of crop through irrigation, but we want to do that by increasing efficiency of water use. And so the method of how we actually implement that tool is determining how much water is actually needed and when to apply that water, right? We're considering the crop demand and we're considering what the rainfall may be. And so Dr. Porter provided me with some data on some field trials that he ran from 2014 through 2016, where he studied 8 different scheduling treatments. They did vary amongst the years, and you will see that in a moment, across 4 different varieties. And these trials took place in Camilla, Georgia at the Stripling Irrigation Research Park. And so the different irrigation methods that are used in this study are a variety of online methods similar to what Dr. Rowland talked about, Peanut Farm, Irrigator Pro, and checkbook methods. The 50% UGA checkbook is half of what the UGA checkbook recommends. A simple estimate of evapotranspiration, the UGA Easy Pan, so a cheap and expensive method, or more expensive, more technical-based sensor methods. There were 4 varieties within these trials, the Georgia 06G and 12Y runner type varieties, the Tough Runner 511, also a runner type, but high oleic variety, and the 727, the high oleic Virginia type. And so if we take a moment to look at the rainfall for each year, because how much we are going to irrigate certainly depends on the rainfall, we see some very stark differences and similarities but on the surface, but differences underneath. And so 2014 was a very dry year at 12.33 inches. And, especially compared to, we start looking at 15 and 16, a lot more wet years there, that are very similar on the surface, but very different underneath. The 2015 year had fewer large rainfalls. There were a lot more distributed throughout the season in terms of when those rainfalls occurred, whereas 2016 had a lot of very large events and not a very wide distribution. And so that does present some different challenges in terms of, on somewhat similar types of rainfall, how irrigation scheduling can ultimately help and which irrigation scheduling practice to use. So we can take a look at the irrigation by year and different scheduling methods. And so on the left-hand side we have here 2014. We've got different scheduling methods in 2015 and then 2016 on the right-hand side. This first line is the total rainfall, and you can see as rainfall increases, we do have, in the very dry year, we have a large amount of irrigation that's occurring. The UGA checkbook had the highest amount of irrigation that was applied to the crop. There was a little bit of irrigation on the dry land in all 3 years at the time of planting. On these wet years, in 2015, again, the UGA checkbook is providing a considerably more amount of irrigation, but we have a lot lower amount of irrigation on all these other scheduling methods. In 2016, again, a very high year, now we actually have more irrigation being applied based on these scheduling methods. And so even though we have more rainfall, because of the distribution of that rainfall and it not being well distributed based on what the plant needs during its important growth periods, we do actually need to apply more irrigation. And so we can look at the yields from each of these scheduling methods. In 2014, I cut this off at 4,000 pounds per acre. In 2014, dry land was actually virtually nothing. It was less than 500 pounds per acre. And you can see the importance then of any of these irrigation methods. The sensor-based, the UGA SSA and the smart crop certainly provided greater yields than some of the others. In 2015, we do have a very large dry land yield that occurs and not as much variability amongst other irrigation methods, although now we do see a greater yield from EasyPan and Irrigator Pro. 2016, again, dry land providing a very high yield, but we do see a significant difference with respect to the value and the yield that irrigation methods provide. Now looking at higher irrigations from Irrigator Pro, but then also in terms of the Peanut Farm SSA and a 50% UGA checkbook. And so when looking at an economic analysis, the way I approached this was on a net dollar benefit of these different scheduling methods relative to a dry land planting, utilizing the 2017 estimated costs from the UGA Ag and Applied Economics Peanut Enterprise budgets. So irrigation is estimated at $8.25 per acre inch, so that's a combination of diesel and electric costs. As well as repairs and labor that goes into managing the irrigation. Also considering weed control and disease control costs, because they do differ between dry land and irrigated. So obviously there will be no difference amongst those between irrigation practices that you have, at least the way it's budgeted, but there are differences because we're putting that base against dry land. To assume that all other input costs are constant, and it does not include any opportunity costs of management, and so the time that you spend certainly is different on these different scheduling methods. The current marketing price in terms of the value of the peanuts, utilizing just, right now, about a week ago, what the USDA sent out as a current price, 19 cents per pound, 380 a ton. Obviously, 2017 certainly looks like a better year than that. So looking at the net benefits on the 2014 trial, we can see that, I've got the total irrigation amount and the total amount of water. Rainfall, remember, was very low. This was a very dry year. And we see where the SSA and Smart Crop, based on the different varieties, provides the highest net dollar benefit. So certainly during these dry years, we're looking at more of a sensor-based irrigation method as being more effective. In 2015 trials, we see something that looks very different, where irrigation now actually provides a negative net benefit over dryland costs. And this is because, for starters, we have a lot of rainfall and essentially irrigation providing, based on timing, a lot of excess water to the plant. That's something that did not provide a lot of benefit, or essentially a negative benefit in terms of yield. And so we do see a couple of positive places where you might get some benefit based on Tough Runner 511 on Irrigator Pro. But it's very much, looking at either minimizing the loss as a result in terms of dollar per acre as a result of irrigation. Again, it's just very dependent on how the rainfall and the distribution of that rainfall occurs. On the 2016 trial, again, a very wet year, but the distribution of rainfall is quite different. And so here we actually do see some positive benefits from Irrigator Pro on Georgia 06G, the Peanut Farm as a positive net benefit on Georgia 12Y and Tough Runner 511, providing the highest value, and then the 50% UGA checkbook on the Tough Runner 727. Okay, and so here you do see amongst a wide variety of irrigation scheduling methods, you do see a decent positive net benefit over dryland. We can also look at the average between 15 and 16. If we take the average yield that occurred between those 2 years and the average irrigation amount between those 2 years, to kind of balance things out a little bit, because there is that great variability that does occur from year to year. We do see where Irrigator Pro and the 50% UGA checkbook provide the greatest net dollar benefit relative to these other irrigation scheduling methods. Certainly the Peanut Farm also is providing a good amount of benefit, especially on Georgia 12Y and Tough Runner 511. And so some basic conclusions, some take-home messages from this. In dry years, sensor-based systems seem to provide the highest dollar net benefit. Whereas in wet years, that rainfall distribution is really important, and in certain wet years where it's not distributed perfectly for the crop, there really are no benefits to irrigation. And so you can certainly start thinking about efficiency waste from water usage in those times. When rainfall is not well distributed, the online scheduling checkbook method was preferred, and I think we need probably a little bit more data to really determine some of the statistical differences. Some of those net dollar benefits were very close, and so whether or not they are actually providing some different benefits would require some more data as well. And so I'd just like to acknowledge, Dr. Porter and all of the research staff and funding that went into his trials, and the opportunity for me to come and talk to you today, and I hope to have that opportunity in the future as well. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer, or my contact information as well.